hints and tips for today is on using letter symbols. That is lesson number 96. Before we go on into using letter symbols, we have to come up with patterns. So there got to be a description as to how patterns are formed or the type of patterns that we come up with. So here now from the PowerPoint we have, this is an hexagon formed from using matchsticks. Now using the letter symbols, M stands for the number of matches and H stands for the number of hexagon. We have 6 matchsticks that form one hexagon. Using the letter symbols now, we have the rule or formula that we can use. As in letter symbols, M stands for the number of matches equals 6 number of matchsticks times H, which is the number of hexagon, is equals to 6 times 1. 6 is the answer as the number of matchsticks. Thank you, teachers. This is the end of our hints and tips for today.
Hello, receiving teachers, receiving students, and 7Es.
Hello, Miss Philip.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, before we go on to our lesson topic for today, from the whiteboard here now we have our exercises from our previous lesson. We said that we are going to correct that together as our recap activity. Okay, the first one, A, the question is on the first paper. Recap activity number 1. In these questions, work out the function machine rule that goes in the main part of the function machine. And also there is an equation that you are going to write in terms of y in terms of x. We have gone through that in our last lesson. So the solution should be answered on the second paper here. Second recap activity, we have the question on the function machine and also the table in the first paper. Solutions are to be written on these 2 papers. Whatever answer that you have provided for recap activity B should go on this paper, basing on this function machine. And whatever answers that you have from this function machine will be transferred into this table form. Are we following, 7Es and receiving students? Third one, you have the recap activity question up here. We have the function machine and also we have the table. Solutions are to be written on these 2 tables. So I'll be selecting groups. Among the group, there'll be a student to come up and write the solution to this recap activity. Let's now go on to the first recap activity. Who would like to write in the answers to those missing spaces? Remember, you are doing 2 things. So 1A, I'd like 2 students to come up and write their solution to that activity. You are writing an equation and also the function rule. Group 1, can we select 2 students? Okay, let's have 2 students. We have Donald and can we have Agel? Agel, let's have a boy and a girl. Donald, you come and do the first one. What would be the function rule of that function machine? And also, what would be the equation written in terms of x and y? This one. You write on the paper. You use a different color. Make sure to write it out big. what would be the equation to that in terms of y and x? Remember, x goes in as the input. We have the function rule there written, and it comes out as y, the result. How do we write the equation? Y in terms of x. Come on, you did your exercise. How could you forget the equation that you have written in your books? Okay, let's have Win to come and help Donald. Okay, he has written the answer just right next to the letter Y. Always remember, you write it separate from these two pronumerals that represent these numbers. So when you are trying to write your equation, it should be written separately from these two. So your equation should be written as y is equals to 3x. This is just like a times table. So it must be an italic x. Okay, we will go through it later. Let's go on to activity or recap activity number B or letter B. Who would like to do that one for us? This time the outputs are missing from the Y column. So I'd like a student to come up and write the numbers that should go into the boxes that are empty. So let's have Ruthie. You come and do the first set of the activity B. And who would like to do number B on the table? John. Write out your numbers clearly. Okay, John, quickly. Okay, very good. Let's move on to letter C. Your outputs are missing from the function machine and also from the table. The outputs are also missing. So we have Tara and Clement. Tara, you come and complete the function machine. And Clement, I'd like you to come and complete the table. You others sitting down, I'd like you to check through to see that you have the same answers like what our friends have written on the chart. Okay, thank you to those students who have come up to write the solution to this recap activity. Now let's check to see that our answers are correct with what our friends have written. Solution to the first one, we have the inputs 2, 4, 6. and we have the output 6, 12, and 18. There is a number or a function rule that we need to have in this main part of this function machine so that we can have the result as this one. So in this case, we have times 3. The rule is you are to multiply all these inputs by 3. Is it correct? Put your hand up if you have your function rule in the main part of this machine as times 3. Okay, very good. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 3 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Your equation that you should be writing out from this function machine is, because it comes out as y, the result, we have y is equal to 3x because we are multiplying by 3. So that is the answer to the first recap activity. Now let's move on to B. The function rule here is we are multiplying the inputs by 6. And we have 2 outputs missing. Let's have a look at the solution. 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 6 is 18, correct? These same numbers here are to be transferred into a table form. Like what we have learned in our previous lessons, you can have your inputs and output in a function machine, and also it can be transferred into a table form. So we have the first row, x, the inputs, and y are the outputs. And we have these 2 numbers here that go in place of, if x comes in as 1, the result should be 6. If it comes in as 3, it goes out as 18. Okay, let's move on. Number 2, if you B, if you have the same answer, I'd like you to mark your work correct. Recap activity C. This time, the function rule is we are adding 4. 1 plus 4 is 5. Very good. 2 plus 4 is 6. 3 plus 4 is 7. All these are transferred into a table form. X column, the inputs are all written. Don't forget there were some students that left out the equation column blank. Y equals x plus 4. And the same information that you have from this function machine as your output should be transferred into these blank spaces here. 5, 6, and 7. 7 is, put your hand up if you got the 3 activities correct. Okay, very good. If you are still confused, do not hesitate to ask. The same goes to the receiving students. Also, do ask help from your class teacher. Okay, we will now move on to our lesson topic for today. Okay, our lesson topic for today is using symbols. A symbol is a sign used to stand for words. It is a mathematical shorthand way of writing something. So when we are going through the lesson for today, I'd like us to pay full attention so that we get what we are supposed to be learning in our lesson for today. So I repeat, a symbol is a sign used to stand for words. It can come in letters, it can come in patterns, or any symbol that you would like to use. Instead of writing words, there is short way of writing those, especially in mathematics. Okay, we have 3 points to go through as to what we are going to be really doing in the lesson for today. Point number 1, when we are going through the lesson, you are going to be learning on how you can understand that letters are used to stand for numbers and quantities. So if a pattern is given or symbol is given, that there can be a letter that can represent the particular pattern that is given. Also, we are going to be using letters as symbols to come up with simple rules that we are going to use. And the third point, we are to recognize algebraic conversion, how to substitute numbers into letters, and then we work out answers as in algebra. Okay, let's have a look at this pattern here. It comes in a form of what shape? What do we call this shape here? Ruthie. You should have learned this in grade 6. What do we call this shape? But it's got its own name.
Hexagon.
Okay, very good. Do we all agree it's an hexagon? Yes. Okay, imagine that I have used matchsticks or broomsticks to form this hexagon. Now, how many matchsticks have I used to form this shape?
6.
Okay, 6. Very good. Okay, we are just thinking from our head and giving our answers. Hexagon begins with what letter? H. Okay, we are now going into symbols. Later we will see how it can be written. What have I used to form my hexagon? Matchsticks or broomsticks. So in this case, I will go for using a matchsticks. Now, how many matchsticks have I used?
6.
6 matchsticks. Okay, how about if I want to make 2 hexagons? What would be my total number of matchsticks? 11. Remember, one hexagon has how many matchsticks? 6. How about 2? Very good. I should be having 12 matchsticks to form 2 hexagons. How about 3? 18. We are climbing up by how many matchsticks? 6. How about 4 hexagons? 24. So this pattern now tells us that number of matches formed is equals to a number of matchsticks times the number of hexagon. Okay, let's have a look at how we can write that. This is how you can write that as in mathematics. Number of matches. We are trying to work out how many matchsticks altogether are we going to use to form certain number of hexagon. Having in mind for 1 we use 6 matchsticks times the number of hexagons. So if I was given 2 hexagon, where would 2 go into? 6 times, remember 6 is for 1. Where would my 2 go to? Number of hexagon, because I'm trying to form how many hexagon? 2. For 1, I can just substitute into this wording here, number of hexagon. This 6 represents the number of hexagon, the number of matchsticks that you use to form 1 hexagon. Instead of writing this as in words, letters can be used to stand for an unknown in a given pattern. How? We can let M stand for the number of matches. Symbol, this is what we mean now, or letters. M stand for the number of matches, and H stand for the number of hexagon. Simple algebraic expression that you can write. We can describe the pattern as M equals 6 times H. Instead of writing the long phrase number of hexagon, it can come in as a letter which is H. M and H are replacing numbers. Later in your other lessons to come, you are going to be learning more on that, on how to substitute numbers into pronumerals. So these letters are called pronumerals, as in maths. We have numerals, which are numbers. Letters in maths, we call them as pronumerals. We have pro in front of numerals, so they represent letters. Any questions? Okay, it should be very easy when it comes to our learning activity. Hexagons. Look at the table very carefully. Number of hexagon given as, in bracket, the symbol is what? H. And we have 1 hexagon, 2 hexagon, 3 up to 7. The bottom column or bottom row, we have the number of matches, and the symbol would be M. For 1 hexagon, how many matchsticks do I need? 6. For here I have one example that we are going to do together from the PowerPoint, and then you have an A3 paper that we are going to do that together to complete the table. As you can see from the table, M and H take variation values. They represent numbers. Okay, when H is 1, hexagon is 1, M would be 6. How about if I have 3 hexagon? If I were to form 3 hexagon? Okay, very good. You should have the number of matchsticks would be 18, and this 18 should come straight under 3. Now let's have some students to come and complete this for us. Quickly, I'd like 5 students to come and quickly write answers to these blank spaces. We have done the first one together. Let's have Bagley, Daisy, John, JJ, and Samuel. Quickly run up and write your answers. You just come and fill in whichever you feel comfortable in writing your answers from which column. Write neatly. Okay, let's have the last one. 6 hexagon, it's still missing. Okay, very good. These are the answers that we should be having in our table. We have number of hexagon 1 to 7. If I have 2 hexagon, the total number of matches would be 12, 3, 18, 4 would be 24, 5, 30, 6, 36, and 7, 42. Let's look at how it can be written or worked out as in maths. Smart students, they go straight into writing the answers in the table, but there is also a rule that we need to use. in order to get our values into those pronumerals. Looking at the whiteboard now, this is how it can be worked out when we are using the rule. Number of matrices, we are now dealing with the first example that is already shown from this table, 1 to 6, is equal to 6 number of matrices times number of hexagon. Remember, we are using symbols. M is the number of matrices equals 6 times H, number of hexagon. Now we substitute into this rule here. We are trying to work out what would be the total number of matrices for one hexagon. 6 times H, remember we are working with the first one, equals 6 times 1. So for one hexagon, you should have a total number of matrices, which is 6. The same rule would be applied for these numbers here. It has been applied for that in order to get our answers. But because we have learned some things on sequences, you now know that here we are climbing up by, we start off with 6, and we are climbing up by 6 each time. When the number of hexagon increases, the rule says we are adding 6. Okay, we will now go on to our activity for today. Looking at this one, we got to be very careful now. This time the hexagons are not separated, they are close together. It says copy and complete the table for the pattern of crosses. This pattern could be described as the number of matrices equals 5 times number of hexagon plus 1. We are now going to be joining hexagons together. We are not separating them where you just have 6. We have first set of 5 matchsticks. Sorry. We are going to, for example, if I were to draw this on the whiteboard, we should be paying attention. Okay, this time the hexagon should be changed in another direction. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For 1, we should be having 5. To complete that, we add the plus 1. So we have 5 matchsticks plus how many more? To complete the shape. Okay, we have 5. That is the plus 1 equals 6. Now I've told you we are joining the hexagons. We are not going to separate the hexagons. So if I were to have another 2, I'm going to join this now. Can you see another one there? What would be my total of hexagon there? Madeline? 11. Okay, 11, very good. We have 5 times, how many hexagon? 2 plus 1. Remember, multiplication is a different operation sign from addition. So always have your brackets. So for 2 hexagon, we have 10 plus 1 equals 11. The total number of matchsticks that you are going to form 2 hexagon. Any questions, 7 Eastern receiving students? Okay, if we don't have any question, I'd like you now to complete that table. I will only give you 2 minutes to complete this. In your groups, I'd like you to complete this table. You have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Using the rule, number of mats is equals to 5 times number of hexagon plus 1. Don't forget to write your rule down. There's only one, but there are questions written here. Just this one and another thing.
They are not doing this one.
No, this one. This learning activity. We've gone through this. They are now working on this one.
Okay, can you give this one for their homework? We are running out of time.
That's okay.
So you correct this one, they'll do it for homework and then go to this one.
If you are working as an individual, it will take time for you to complete the activity. Okay, you have some other questions relating to this table. I'd like you to complete that for homework, and I'll be collecting those for correction to see how well you have understood the activity. Okay, we have gone through the first two as examples again, so it should now be very clear for you to complete the rest of the questions. The formula or the rule is already given for you in the book, and we also went through it together. So if you haven't finished, don't forget, complete that as homework. So to the receiving students, I'd like you to also do the same. Complete the table for homework, and then you can hand in your books to your teacher to mark. Okay, we will now go on to our summary points for our lesson for today. Okay, we have the 2 summary points that are now on the screen. While I read through, do make sure you follow and write. Use a letter to stand for an unknown number in patterns called algebra. Quickly copy the first summary point down. I encourage you to read sentence and then write down your summary, not word by word, because word by word you are taking time. Number 2 summary point, using letters or symbols to represent the numbers in pattern is called pronumerals. Those are our 2 summary points for our lesson for today. So I'd like you to copy that into your books. Okay, you should be finishing by now. If you haven't finished, do copy from your friends that have completed writing those 2 summary points. Don't forget that. Okay, our key phrase for today, using pronumerals. To the receiving teacher, our next lesson topic is on rules of algebra. Lesson number 97. Materials needed for the particular lesson: worksheet, A4 papers, pen or pencil, rulers. With that, we have come to the end of our lesson. Thank you, receiving students and 70s, for your participation.